So, I don't know if our guest knows, but JT just spawned another creature, another human being, another entity born out of darkness, also known as a child.
Thanks.
JT is a proud father of his second kid. When did that happen, JT? How did it go? Tell us about. Was it as exciting as the first one? I can't wait for your second kid to watch this back in 10 years and be like, "What? It wasn't as exciting." Please tell us.
No, it was much worse than the first one. I'll tell you what. No, the first one is usually the worst one, and that took that labor was like 2.5 hours, something like that, from when we got to the place to when we had a baby. And this time we were in the hospital for multiple days because you have to stay afterwards. But before the baby was born, from the time we went in to the time there was a baby, was 24 hours, just about.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That was not the active process. She wasn't like, for 24 hours.
No, that was, yeah, he says, oh, you know your stuff. Yeah, so active labor was only the last, 2-ish hours. But leading up to that, is more infrequent. But yeah, I'll spare everybody the details, because ain't nobody want to hear that. But yeah, it's been good so far. His name is Thomas. He's a little boy, and he's doing well. He just started, doing his little social smiles today. He's about 3 weeks old. Yeah, nothing much to report, but that is why if I appear tired or if I'm a little slow, that is why.
Oh, you're going to milk that excuse probably for the next 3
For
years.
The rest of my life.
Yeah. Which is a perfectly adequate excuse. I mean, I haven't had the experience. I don't know if our guest has. You got any kids? At least that you know of course. Oh, I have to squeeze that one in.
Yeah, you got to. We're trying to cook one up at some point, but we're not we both want to, but we're trying to get our careers in the exact place where we're fully ready, which is what every person says. But it's we're close to being ready, but my wife's trying to build up. She's sort of Instagram influencing, so it'd be quite ideal if she can do that whilst being a mum, because then she can kind of make that even content, which is kind of insane. But yeah, we're just trying to get our sort of life in place. We're close. I bought the flat, and now she's just trying to get sorted as an immigrant into this country. She's only been here for a year and a bit. So yeah, want to, not yet. Very excited to. But nice. Yeah, congrats though. That's sick that you...
appreciate it. And your wife is from Thailand, right?
Ukraine. So so it's quite common.
Thailand?
We met in Thailand.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's quite common for Ukrainians to have kids sort of 20, 22. It is changing as the country's sort of changing a bit now, a bit later, but it's sort of culturally common to have them early 20s. But yeah, so we both really want to, but it's just making it possible. I think it'll be another year or two, I think.
Nice. Well, that's exciting. That's exciting.
You guys are far ahead of me. I just fucking proposed 2 months ago, a 5-year relationship. So yeah, I'm one of the slow ones, especially just like your wife from the Slavic world. All my 80% of my my friends or her friends already got 3 fucking kids, and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm screaming into microphones on the internet." Don't you fucking understand? It's a career, mom. Trust me. But jokes aside, that's really nice. I want to ask both of you because we got some people might think it's basically the same thing, and only for people from the US and from the UK, it's not the same thing. For the rest of us, it is. You guys are obviously from 2 different places, but there might be one very, very strong distinction. JT, you were in the room while she was giving birth, right?
That is correct.
Both times. That is insane to me. That is absolutely insane to me.
Really?
I will pass out, but you don't see the whole thing. You just sit in the back with her, right?
Yeah, in the back. It's one body. There's not 2 different rooms.
Well, no, because they do make it basically into 2 rooms. It's
not
really,
not generally. No,
God.
if there are complications or something, then usually they're gonna have some kind of surgical barrier thing or something.
Yeah, because in the films you always see them with the barrier, isn't it? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it just depends. And I think that's usually just to make the shooting of the scene easier and less weird. But yeah, it's just you and your partner and some nurses and doctors and stuff just kind of chilling.
Yeah, that's crazy. And you said it was 24 hours. It was like a speed run. It was pretty good.
Yeah. It wasn't for the first bit. You're wheeled into one room. They check you out, make sure everything's okay. You sit for a while until there's a proper room ready for you where you can do the early labor stuff. Just kind of walk around, or you get on the bouncy ball and stuff like that.
Honestly, my wife doesn't like the idea of giving birth in Britain in the NHS.
Really?
Yeah. Because I think, like, our experience with the NHS since she's been here has not been very good. We've had like situations where we're waiting for months, and then also anecdotally we knew someone who doctors went on strike as she went into labour, and she was literally, I think it was 2 days. They couldn't sort her out, so she was like, it was way extended than it should have been. And we typically go to Ukraine to sort out any medical stuff, so there's sort of part of us that's like, maybe we go to Ukraine, which is kind of fucked because you don't really want to travel in that first period for like at least
and there's
months.
A war, like the NHS is fucked right now. I would prefer to go to a country in an active war zone.
That's how honestly mental the NHS at the moment is, because like NHS. Genuinely a lot of Ukrainians go back to do medical stuff because it's better, it's easier to go over there and do it. It's insane. It's so sad, but it's insane. It's like kind of how it is at the moment.
It sucks. The NHS is such a good institution. You guys have just been gutted.
We wrecked it. And I remember, and I always say it, I was like, when we was younger, there was literally a story going around about how the NHS was too efficient. They were like, because British people like to be a bit chitty chatty and like be like, how you doing? They're like, they just want to see you out the door. It was like the argument was they were too quick, that they weren't being more personal with you.
Wow.
But nowadays it's the opposite, and now everyone's sort of forgotten that era. That it was like very efficient for a very long time, and then we made a very specific decision to not fund it much, and all of a sudden it broke, and now they're like, it's just impossible. You can't do free healthcare. I don't know. It's just the way everyone's brain just sort of turned off that memory. It's ridiculous.
It's like what I say in the States is, if we didn't already have fire departments, which are obviously free, you call a fire department, they're going to put out the fire at your house. If we didn't already have that, Americans would absolutely not allow fire departments to be a thing. It doesn't take long. Yeah, it's
so mad. Yeah, that was part of like when I did this video that I just sort of said about how American propaganda fried your brain. It was like this, what exists amongst Americans is, it's not just Americans, but it's very obviously
bad. Yeah.
But it's like you have this not you, but you're. I'm trying not to insult all Americans. Sorry,
I'll be
but
that is very encouraged on the show.
They have this incredibly binary view of morality, and so like when I'm going through like Hollywood, and it's this thing that all the films are, it's good or bad. There's no middle ground. It's always one or the other. And I watched this video about it was comparing Chinese political philosophy versus American. I don't know if you see that one. Really good. And he explains how Americans go from like, I guess they call it like first principles thinking or something like this, and they build on top of it. So you have a concept they consider good, which would be something like freedom. So like freedom is good, freedom is always good, and so our mission is to put freedom into more areas of life. Whereas the Chinese way of looking at how he was saying is that they would take a concept like freedom and say, when does it apply? When does it not apply? How does it work here? Does it work there? And so they think more laterally, whereas Americans tend to build on top of concepts, but then it kind of breaks down because obviously freedom doesn't work in every single thing, like we have to restrict freedoms. So it's like, it was kind of I don't really know how I got to that point, but
we usually end up in the America bad kind of conversation.
Sorry. Americans are nice though.
Will you look at your wife giving birth 5 minutes later? So America sucks, right?
Yeah. How did we get here?
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Deprogram. We got a special one in store for you tonight, or this morning, or this afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this. Joining us today is Jimmy the Giant, a true giant of YouTube political commentary, professional freerunner, and, don't hold this against him, a British man. Welcome to the show, Jimmy. Thank you, Anne, from my Twitch, for getting us in touch. It's a true pleasure to have you on the show. We love your work. Before you start, can you tell everyone in our audience that isn't familiar with your work a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, big up. Thank you. I would say professional freelancer. That's a massive overstatement. My journey into like making political commentary kind of came from, or like more like video essays, I suppose. It started from, I did parkour since I was very little. Like, not very little, probably like 16, maybe 15, got into it. And I always sort of wanted to make it a career. And in parkour, which is not an industry that you can really make a career of, you tend to go down either like making a clothing brand. None of them make money, but they think they will until they're like 22 and realize, shit, I need to get a real job. Yes. Or you go down the YouTube route of like vlogging, and there's like 2 of them that are successful at it. So the sort of ability to turn it into a career is very tough. The other one, you can be like a coach or something, but I'm not trying to do all that. So I went down the YouTube route, and I was very in this world, and I sort of had a lot of knowledge about this world. And I started noticing on YouTube there were like people making video essays about skateboarding that were beyond like a vlog. They were more like why this trick changed skateboarding, or why Tony Hawk's did this. And there were sort of cultural reflections on skateboarding. Mm-hmm. And I found it really interesting. And I had a story about parkour, which was this brand called Urban Free Flow, and they like monopolized the parkour market. There was some really good stuff, and then it all went like into sort of scandal, and it blew up. And I made a documentary just on that after having tried to make a parkour clothing brand for a very long time. I just told this story, and long story short, it went viral. It led to me doing like more documentaries on parkour than extreme sports, as I kind of tried to pivot out of parkour when I felt like I was stuck in a niche kind of thing. I started moving extreme sports, and then eventually I did a series of videos that were kind of like why X died, and it was sort of like why rollerblading died, why this died, and I was really kind of building up this sort of like cultural lens of the 90s and the 2000s pop culture, and I just applied that formula to chavs, which were like a subculture as opposed to a sporting culture. And I wasn't sure at the time that it was going to even do well. I thought that it's too, I don't know, like it was just so different to everything I was making. But I was like, you know what, fuck it. And it would bring me into a new realm of content sort of thing. And it blew up. It was like similar thing. I'd had sort of like my original spike, and it was just going down slowly and sort of stabilizing. And then this one blew up. And then it led me on this route of doing like subculture analysis. So at this time, I'm like a right winger. Like I'm a Jordan Peterson fan, Ben Shapiro fan, all this sort of shit. And I make this video about chavs, and I'm forced to acknowledge throughout the video that something that Owen Jones, who is the enemy of the people, that something he says is like quite good. Because I actually spent time to sit and read what he had to say about chavs. And it was something that wasn't like loaded at the time. It wasn't about wokeism, BLM or something. It was something disconnected from my past that I could analyze sort of unemotionally. And I listened to him say about it, and I even said in the video, I was like, I don't like Owen Jones, but what he has to say here is really good. And so I sort of like got opened up. I started doing more of these subculture analysis where I'd go through like punk, where you have to deal with Thatcher, you have to deal with Jamaican immigrants, and you have to deal with skinheads and the racists, the National Front, and you start seeing it, and you're doing like, I'm doing these constantly. I do hippies, I do like rave culture, and you just start seeing like these recurring stories and like recurring political messages, recurring things of like racism and like how they try and derail youth movements. And I just start to basically like completely reverse my political beliefs, because I start seeing
you're developing consciousness.
Yeah. Literally. And it was just such a unique way of doing it. I went through it because I was trying to find content to make for YouTube, and then it just sort of like sparked me on this political thing. And I don't know, it's crazy. I would never, like, genuinely, if you asked me years ago, like, could you ever imagine you would even be close to a leftist, and yet alone now being like a leftist creator, I would have never have said yes. It would have been unbelievable. So power of education, I suppose.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But power of education, but also give yourself props to your ability to look at contradicting information on your biases, and actually looking at it and actually studying it and applying it to the particular topic, be it a subculture or whatever that at that time you were covering, which allowed you to pretty much develop seeing patterns between the skinhead subculture, chav subculture, punk subculture, and then eventually looking at, social structures in a particular country, et cetera, et cetera. Like for a lot of people, for most people, be it content creators or people that just, want to get more informed about a particular issue, the confirmation bias, the wall is so fucking strong that it's borderline impossible to punch through. And you very often need somebody, a quote unquote, like, professor figure, teacher figure, father, mother figure, or whatever, to come and then dissuade you from those particular biases, to quite literally educate you out of them through an active process. But you, while doing research for your videos that, which probably at that time you considered apolitical, which is, a thing that now you probably know it doesn't fucking exist. You by yourself, through your research, managed to spot those same patterns that I'm talking about previously, and let go of your previous bias, which is without an active teaching figure, is very, very cool to see, and it's relatively rare. To be perfectly honest, but before we get political, let's talk about another thing that is political. We only have photos of Marx's great grandson, who is really into free running and parkour, and we don't have his older pictures. And now I got a fucking leftist here that is really into running in a really cool way and jumping over really cool shit in a really cool way. Are you Marx's great-great-grandson, is what I'm asking pretty much?
I'm Adam Smith's.
They're working up to a duel, yeah.
So the guy you're talking about is Joseph Marx. It was so cool. I was like reading the questions and like I was talking to my wife. I was like, they've done some research here. That like whole that guy, his name's Joseph Marx, and I did a whole video on him, actually. It was called, like, How Autism Changed Parkour or something like that. It was ridiculous.
What? You did? How did I not? I fucking... Oh, my God.
Yeah, you could have... That would have been level 2 research. Yeah. That would have been Nardwuar shit. But, like, he's a sick guy. And I've always been good friends with him, and that video just randomly popped off because someone on Reddit shared it, like Marx's great grandson's doing parkour. It's not true. He's not related to Marx. Sorry to burst the bubble.
Damn.
But it's
what?
like, yeah.
But
it's
there's
just
whole articles about it. What the hell?
I'm pretty sure. I remember him saying, I'm not related to Marx. Or I don't think I'm related to Marx. But it was just like, it was a meme because his surname is Marx.
Yeah.
Or maybe double check it. But from my understanding, I think it wasn't true. But like but I think it actually popped him off. He's a super interesting guy. He would sort of get viral fame in random things and never stick to it. So like he would do parkour in this really interesting way. Like no one did parkour like him. And he would do like a funny comedy video that's not parkour, and that would go viral. He would do 3 of them, and it would look like that he was going to make a career of it, and then he would just vanish for like months. And then he would do something else, and now he's like a viral gymnastic instructor. So he's this super, super creative person, but he really struggles to stick at something, or like to pursue it in a career way. He likes just being creative and expressive and doesn't like turn it into like a content grind, I think. But yeah, I think now he's like a gymnastic instructor, pretty successful, and he's a super nice guy. I really like Joseph.
Good for him.
But yeah, I don't think he's truly related to Marx. It would be worth double checking.
We just broke like a massive subcultural myth here. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, honestly.
I'll double check. I'll message him.
I'll please do. And then we can add like a paragraph with this goes for public release. But that's very interesting. And what's extra interesting is you know him. Like the world is so fucking tiny. It's
parkour specifically is tiny. It's like everyone knows everyone, and then you start realizing actually politics ends up kind of the same. You start going, I know this person through this person. So it's like people get into these like small communities, in it, like people are just obsessive over stuff, and then you want to know people similar to you because it's a rare type of person that's going to sit and spend all day thinking about politics. So
special type of
sicko
freak. Yeah, that's how the show began. We worked with each other on some smaller projects, and then JT was like, this is super smooth, and the two of us and Hakeem, who because he's doing a very important job as a doctor, unfortunately couldn't be here, just ended up making the show. But yeah, the circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you end up knowing pretty much everyone in it, as long as someone's not a fucking complete cunt, and then they don't want to talk to you because I don't know.
I notice that's more like, again, I'm sorry if I keep shitting on America. No. I notice all the British creators, they don't tend to even if you're like very different in views, they don't tend to hate each other. But I know there's a lot of public American political beefs. Like there's like the three big careers. I'm not like, I don't know if we're naming names or whatever, but like the three big leftist American like political people, they all hate each other. And it's like in Britain, it's like we kind of, I don't know, like we might not all love each other, but there's not like these animated beefs that are done online. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just we're smaller. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, Americans tend to do things big and bombastic, and like we're friendly until we're really not friendly. But also, as you niche down into like more and more specific political stuff, like you're gonna fixate on the small differences, especially if someone calls you out on something. You're like, oh, okay, here we go. You know, but
it's like in Britain, like all the Navarro guys, they not all of them, but a couple of them would say they're communists, and yet they would happily chat to social Democrats, democratic socialists. They would happily, they would happily talk across the spectrum, and they'd be friends with. Even like with right wingers, that some of them maybe slightly less insane ones, they might know them and not be at war with them. They're not, I don't see that as much. I can't think of even a big British political beef. I don't know what it is. Yes, maybe I might just not be aware of it, but
it's a question of why you're in it, to be perfectly honest. Like if you're in it to change minds, if you're in it to develop what here on the show we like to call class consciousness, if you're in it both to create a career out of it, of course, nobody's blaming anyone for this, but also to spread a particular political message, you focus on utility at the end of the day. And if you focus on utility, you want to create as big of a tent and then try to motivate people to go further and further down the pipeline towards your more niche political conclusions.
That's what I couldn't understand.
It works for everyone, right? Yeah.
I had people slightly annoyed at me for talking to Hassan. I'm like, and also I had some people annoyed at me, not even annoyed at me, but I retweeted that James O. Fuck his name. The guy on LBC, British radio presenter, James O'Sullivan, I think it is. He's like very well known for like your dad probably listens to him in England. He's like that kind of guy, and he was very anti-Corbyn. And I remember he said something about me, and someone tweeted it, and I just reposted it. I was like, "Oh, sick, James! Thanks for chatting about me." And then there was people like against that, and I'm like, "Bro, think about it. He has a massive platform, and he's sort of now talking closer to my view, which is more like tax rich kind of thing. I don't really care if like what he's done in the past or whatever. If it brings certain people potentially to hearing our argument and it normalizes our argument, I'm going to take the win. I'll talk to anyone if it's like I really don't think I would exclude people, especially somewhat close to my side. It just doesn't seem pragmatic. Like if your goal, as you say, is to like ultimately try and win and influence people and better the like living standards of people, then you got to use any opportunity to bring some people over. I don't see this thing of like the purity thing is insane to me. I don't understand it.
It's especially in our space, because at the end of the day, we're trying to condense information and to an extent, depending on the level, teach, right? Doing purity testing from the loudspeaker is strange. That's a job for proper organizers, political movements, boots on the ground type shit, etc., etc. We are the fucking poster boys. Let's without obviously making sure that our rhetoric doesn't get kidnapped. While making sure that our rhetoric doesn't get kidnapped, we need to try and get as many people in the wider circle as possible. And I think you do a pretty decent job at that. And there's a very fun parallel that you already talked about between you and JT, how you guys pretty much started your channels covering something different, developed your class consciousness, and now you're doing this fully. And you've been releasing some very cool shit that is really good at doing to listeners and viewers what you getting informed by yourself managed to do to you. At least that's how I perceive your work, and I truly intend that as a compliment. And for example, loved your last video on how your experiences in Ukraine have completely recontextualized your perspective on the UK, Western late stage capitalism, and the stark variation between urban English poverty and, for example, the poverty of a rural Eastern European farmer. I've experienced a similar nuanced shock, but in reverse, by going from the Balkans to Western Europe and the US and directly learning just how many things I used to take for granted back home. that's why I want us to start, out today's conversation with that particular topic. Apologies in advance for hyper-focusing on the UK, but we can't miss out on the opportunity to completely milk your hot takes on everything British. So,
what is beans on toast?
I thought you were going to address me milking him here in 4K, but whatever. So, to start off, my friend, can you try and give us a story of how a typical British person gets enveloped in debt and economic hardship? Basically, what's the classic story of going broke in 2025 UK?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is you grow up into it. And we have like, I guess the definition of like working class in Britain is really complicated now. I'm reading this book called like A Nation Full of Shopkeepers, The Rise of the Petty Bourgeois or something like that. And it talks about how British attitudes to what even the phrase working class means, because we parallel it with like culture a lot. So we have like a cultural working class, which is this sort of mental image you have of, you are mate, yeah, you are having a pint in the hand, he works like day labour, he works on the site. And then you have like real true economic working class, and there's this weird flip in Britain where actually a lot of those guys ended up being more successful, opening businesses, being self-employed, making more money, and they actually tend to be better off. And interestingly, some of them more vote like sort of right-wing from even like an economic perspective. This guy's book's really interesting about it. I'd recommend it. And it's sort of like, we have this weird scenario where you have like this traditional mental image of what the working class is, but then you have increasingly like white collar working class effectively who are like economically not in a great position. They go to uni and they go and like get a really high degree, and they go and try and get a job. They end up getting just stuck in some shitty like corporate job which pays like 25k a year. So they're not like in miserable poverty, but they really struggle to climb out. And they are definitely in work, like you can't not call them working class, even though culturally they might talk really well. They might talk like quite middle class. Their parents might have been quite successful. They'll have some safety net that maybe other people wouldn't, but they're sort of like, economic class looks more and more exploited. Like it doesn't look like what a middle class background is meant to be. Meanwhile, you have like the traditional working class as we see it actually not doing so bad, because sort of construction jobs and stuff or like specialized construction jobs tend to pay quite well in England, from my understanding anyway. But then you would have like the more classical mental image would be people growing up in like deprived, deindustrialized towns, or like post like seaside towns, and these places are really run down. Like these places are just traps, and they grow up into these environments and there's no investment in there's no wealth in these places, so they grow up in like really run down housing. The schools are underfunded, and more so they just don't have opportunities. So it's like unless they want to upend their life, and this is what happens, is that the some that slip through the cracks and get educated and do well in school, and they leave. So like the educated lot, they leave, they go to London, they go and like, do the rat race. Maybe they make some money, they do okay, whatever, but they probably won't absolutely kill it. But then the hometown just declines and declines and declines, and the investment does this thing of like just pooling around the capital, as opposed to like how we used to have it a bit more spread out, which was obviously done on like a state level. So you're just seeing these places where there's fucking nothing, like whole massive communities all like on government like we call it benefits, and the housing is terrible quality, they're high crime. And ironically, these areas, they're like, many of them are very, like, we obviously talk about immigration a lot in the UK at the moment, and everyone does. But these areas tend to be very white, and they're like white, deindustrialized towns, and they really could do with some leftist policy to help them. But they often get suckered into the right because they go down this sort of immigration route. So you have like that kind of thing where it's just this sort of really hard to escape. It's really hard to build anything in those communities. The only way out is to escape. So you're kind of, it's like a catch-22, like you're just going to kill the area anyway. And then you do have like immigrant areas that are poorer because of, it's sort of like a multiple thing. So we have so many different immigrant backgrounds, and they've all done different levels of success, basically because of what type of, where they came from originally and what they came into the country to do, and like how we treated them and how we helped them over the period of time. So like people who came from like Jamaica, so like you can look at it in Britain, you can look at like different racial groups and how much money they have. So compared to native born population. So it'd be like white British people make £1. To every £1 that the white person makes, then Indians might make 95 pence, Chinese might make 95 pence, and it gets further and further down to like Bangladeshis and sort of, I think, like sub-Saharan Africa. I don't know if that's the exact right term. They will make something like 20p to every pound, and it's all because of like this history of colonialism and even the types of immigrants we allowed in. So we allowed in like Indians who were more middle managers. They were used in like colonial times. They were the middle managers of Africa. We would have taken them and said, you can run this in Africa. So they sort of had more education, a bit more wealth. So they've come in and we've brought them in to do maybe like doctors and sort of well-paid jobs. But then we brought in different groups that have come in to do maybe stuff like working as a social care or like sort of lower skill, lower wage. And so you have this sort of inequality amongst immigrant groups where some immigrant groups have been held back and those areas become rougher. They also had periods of like, they weren't able to be housed in social housing in white areas because of just sort of racism. So they were put into these areas, underfunded, and they've become like criminal, and they become like, you know, especially if they're in London, they're like gang hubs, and like, you know, it's just what happens in a big capital like that. So it becomes like central to the drug trade. So yeah, you just have all these different angles of poverty, deindustrialized poverty, immigrant groups that have come in and got stuck in these sort of like bottom parts of society, really hard to get out. And then you have like this sort of increasing growth of educated, supposedly middle class people that are now like getting in debt. I know people who earn good money that are like always in debt, and they've just got caught in this London trap of constant debt and can never afford anything just because they have to chase the job. It's like, yeah, it's fucked.
And ironically, constantly needed to escape that, as you put, working class identity, because now they're educated. Now they're no longer part of those, you know, filthy chavs or filthy people from the industrialized areas, et cetera, et cetera. So their identity, while being, you know, proletarians, while being working class, while being also exploited by their boss, the whole yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera.
They're culturally made to feel different to them.
Exactly, which then allows them to be, you know, pretty much kidnapped by the right-wing propaganda vortex that we're going to talk about later on, from the lens of, you know, you're not really working class, you're not the poors that we're talking about, don't worry, like you'll be okay, we're talking about the, you know, the real problem. And on top of that, the working class people that still identify as working class people, as you put, that never managed to get out of the borderline, dude, like fucking apocalyptic looking fucking places. Like, I'm from a you know, like ex-socialist country, fucking the 90s rocked the living shit out of us. There's ghost town villages and so on, but there's no ghost town towns. There's no dead cities like it is. I know it's fucking cringe to, you know, get informed on a particular country from movies or from shows, but I watch like too much cinema, right? And I learned about these you know, quasi-dead cities, especially along the coast and so on, off the UK, from shows where guys will literally, for example, you know, a cliche crime show, like somebody fucking whacks someone in London, so they need to escape and, you know, hide out somewhere for like 6 months. So they go to a dead city and they go into a boarded up house and just hide there. I'm like, come on, this is the UK, bro. This is like civilization. There's no way this is real. And then I sit down and I Google, and it is. What the fuck?
I think they call it going country. No, is that the same thing?
Yeah, something like that.
Going country or something like that.
Yeah, we gotta go country. Yeah. So
yeah, it's true. But are you thinking of specifically what you said made me think of Top Boy, and I think that happens in Top Boy. If it doesn't, if that isn't it, that's hilarious. Yeah, it is Top Boy. That's for sure true.
Yes, in Top Boy. Yes, absolutely. There you go.
Yeah. And a lot of like, we call it like county lines. So it used to be that like drugs and stuff were mainly in the cities, and then obviously gangs are capitalists, so they've sort of figured out, well, actually, if we make distribution networks, and sell it to the poorer communities, they're a perfect audience because they're like run down, they've got nothing. If we can just sell them some cheap drugs, so we can even give opportunities to the fucking kids to sell the drugs. It's like this, it's, if anything, some weird private investment into the area.
It's as capitalist as it gets. I mean, it's ironically, one could make an argument that, you know, a falling rate of profit, blah blah blah, eventually the worker cannot afford the very thing he is producing, because even though productivity rises, salaries do not increase together with inflation, while the CEO's fucking salary increases. Everybody in chat fucking knows this at this point. But with drug dealers, you make a very good point. To an extent, like, you're going to these areas that are completely fucked up, and you're, employing all these impoverished kids to make coke for you, to cut it up, to make yellow, to make crack, meth, or whatever the fuck. So they are proletarians making the particular narcotic. But because of the salaries you're paying them for this high-risk job, almost all of them can afford it, to an extent that you can even pay them in the commodity that they are producing. By literally giving them, I'll give you 6 grams if you sell 5. Type shit.
So it'd be really ironically to see someone doing a paper or something on specifically if there's been any benefit to some weird degree of the drug trade in Port Out.
Probably not financially, maybe to an extent. The only point I was trying to make is we've reached a stage in capitalism where your high and mighty suit and tie businessman, arguably on average, extracts more labor value from their employees than Jimmy Billy. Very, very sorry. Than Billy, the drug dealer from across the street. He's probably paying his fucking cutters and dealers more
fairly. So he's a better capitalist.
Worse one.
Oh,
right,
like
because better capitalist exploits. Better. I don't know. Bigger class trader to his capitalist. But it's crazy conundrum, which just shows how unhinged this whole fucking system is. When somebody's selling crack, arguably treats his employees better than someone.
Oh, you're saying treats them better? I'm with you. Okay.
Than somebody making Mars bars or fucking water bottles.
I think you would really find it interesting, this book about the petty bourgeois, because it says, like, I'm sure you know about this stuff more than me, but it's like how in Nazi Germany they were able to radicalize the petty bourgeois because they're affected both ends. So they're exploited by major, like, big capital and like big supply chains. They get undercut by them and they struggle against them, but they also are negatively affected by having to have workers' rights. So they want to have their labor. If you run a small business, ideally, you don't really want your workers to have too many rights, because you also have to take that cost. Big businesses, it's easier for them to take the cost of workers' rights or whatever, and you're also being undercut by them. So they're like in this special position, the sort of like petty bourgeois, small business owner, white van man in Britain or whatever we call them. Where they're
white
sort of
van man?
exploited.
This sounds like a pedophile. White van man? Sorry.
And you got like free candy. And it's like, I don't know. It's like a phrase we just use for like the guy who does odd jobs or works in construction.
Okay. Shit. Now I feel like a dick. Now I feel like a dick. Petit bourgeois, pedophilic bourgeois. I'm so sorry. That was disrespectful. I apologize.
Yeah, but then they have this same attitude, I suppose it is, where they look down on work, like people on benefits, because they see it as, well, I'm paying for their benefits. I went out and I got it. And so they're this really particular class. And in this book, it sort of talks about how, I think Napoleon called us a nation full of shopkeepers, even though France apparently had more self-employed people. But we just have nowadays a very high percentage of self-employed small business owners, as opposed to like a lot of places in Europe. And that makes our political messaging's much harder at that point, because that's why a far right person wins, because they or appeals to them arguably, is because they can both argue against leftism, workers' protections, but they can also give you an excuse as to why the big capital, big businesses are against you, because they can sort of say, like, it's the Jews. We're not there right now, but like they can say that there's, it's Brexit, it's the big bureaucrats, it's the sort of like boys club or whatever. And to an extent, they're kind of right, but they don't understand why they're right. They don't understand that they are being exploited. But these people can say, look, it's not capitalism. It's these sort of like bugs in the system that we just need to weed out. And it's why they do well amongst the sort of petty bourgeois small business owner.
Absolutely. And the UK is a great example of exactly what you're saying. I mean, utilizing the petit bourgeois for reactionary sentiment, and even very often using them as the meat of the, the fucking Gestapo, the fucking, creme de la crop of the SS. It always comes from the petit bourgeois, because at the end of the day, like, it can be a complicated analysis, but I like to make it very simple. The reactionary, like, the right winger, he goes to the petit bourgeois guy. representing, big capital, and he tells them, bro, you're one of us. You're one of us. Come on. You're a business owner. Yeah. You're an employer. You're making them good bucks. Those fucking idiots that work for you should be grateful that you're even giving them a cent, right? You're one of us. He is not one of them. He is a class of its own with particular, class interests that differentiate from large capital and from the proletariat. Blah, blah, blah. We could talk about it. But at the end of the day, as more and more industries get more and more monopolized, which is the natural flow of the free market economy, they are going to be out of a job as well. There's not going to be mom and pop shops. Is that your fucking you have 3 mechanic stores or whatever the fuck. That shit's not going to exist. But it's very easy to pitch them. You're one of us. Join us against this unwielding red menace that is going to take your fork and your spoon and your garage too, etc., etc. So couldn't agree more. And the UK, very specifically, is a very fertile ground for this, for all the reasons that you mentioned. Another fertile ground is, I've honestly never even thought about it, in particular the difference in let's say income between the different immigrant ethnic groups in the country can also potentially be utilized by the right wing. I don't feel like they're doing it yet, but potentially they can, with the differentiation of, good immigrant and very, very bad immigrant, like et cetera, to do the whole thing. They do it a lot in Austria with Balkan immigrants, for example. You will literally have some fucking Bosnian or Croatian dude or Serbian dude voting for the guy that is like, fucking immigrants, except these ones. These ones are kind of okay. Some of them are kind of, you're good, boy, you're good.
Kind of have that. If you listen to like Nigel Farage, he'll talk very highly of Indian immigrants. Like he says like we have such a special relationship with them, but then he'll talk negative of like, I guess like sort of Pakistani. He doesn't like. He's so clever. He doesn't. But he allows that sort of room in your brain to be like, the Indians are fine, but we don't like these ones. Like he sort of does it he lets you fill in the blanks kind of thing.
The Muslim ones, it's absolutely, absolutely,
exactly,
absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong, but UK is kind of a double whammy burger of end of the line cope, both as a former empire and a country struggling to find its footing in late stage capitalism. Today's British people are born at the tail end of a nation still enveloped in cultural exceptionalism inspired by its centuries old empire on which the sun never sets trademark, and stage of capitalism where pretty much everything sucks for 95% of people. So what are some of the, because we got into that conversation in particular, what are some of the reactionary far-right pitches that you see manifesting as a response to that? Give us a slight maybe history of past movements. You have great videos on Thatcher and so on. What we can see today as well, and where you think the right will try to steer the country's destiny as shit continues to get worse and worse for most people.
Yeah, like I think in the... like I've gone on Twitter so much, which is probably really not a good idea. So I'm seeing but I think I'm seeing the future in Twitter. I think there's an element that I'm seeing where it's going, because you see the most crazy people, and you see that there is really people that really now despise immigrants based on race. And it's like for a long period of time, it's always been wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We'll use word culture. We'll say we'll talk about Islam as an ideology. Now there are just overtly racist people, but I'd say they are sort of on Twitter. But it's like there's so many of them, and they're so active, and it like worries me. We have a politician. I think the most extremist politician in Britain would be Rupert Lowe, and if you just go on his Instagram, it is every single tweet. He's an MP that was in Reform and got booted out of Reform. I don't know how much you guys know about British politics. I don't know if you hear about Reform Party. They're out, okay. And your audience, I don't know, but like Reform Party, they're like our far right party. They are now like leading in the polls. It looks like they'll probably potentially have a full government. Like it would be insane, and that's led by Nigel Farage. But they had a guy called Rupert Lowe, and he got in an argument with Nigel Farage. I think because he was starting to really build up his own platform, and he is to the right of Nigel for sure.
It's insane,
yeah. And he got kicked out of Reform. They said it was they're going to have a police investigation into him misconduct, like apparently he'd assaulted someone or something, kicked out. He says it was a witch hunt, all this stuff. And a lot of Reform voters really dislike Nigel now. Ex-Reform. They've moved away because of this. They've wronged Rupert Lowe, blah, blah. But if you go through his Instagram and his Twitter, I'd be so surprised if he has Instagram. It'd be hilarious. But I was saying it on stream like yesterday. I was saying he is like this old man you imagine in a pub who like his wife left him a long time ago, and he sat there in his like jacket that fucking stinks of like, I don't know, must. And he sat there yappering to himself. And anytime someone comes past, he ushers them into a conversation about immigrants, and he starts talking about the migrants. And like his whole feed on Twitter is migrant. Like it's insane. Like I'm not even exaggerating. Every single word is about migrants. And we need to deport all this. So he went off and set a new party, and I sort of think that he will be the next logical conclusion, because we are gearing the country up to believe that we can have a system that can just turn down migration. Like that's what we're selling them at the moment, is this idea that immigration is too high. We don't hate immigrants, it's just too high, and we need to bring it down to manageable levels. It's like a way of having this sort of British feeling of like, we're civilized, nice people, we're not racist, we're never racist, but we just accept that there's a bit too much immigration. But our entire system is tied to immigration, and it's an economic reality that under the way we structure our system, we need immigration. Like and everyone knows, all the politicians know it, and so none of them will commit to like specifically saying it'll be zero migration, because they know they can't. Immigrants prop up our entire pension system. Our birth rate is so low. Even if you found some policies to increase our birth rate, that's going to take 18 to 20 years, and we have the baby boomer generation that aged into pensioner age, which requires more healthcare, more social care. We have firstly the birth rate problem. Secondly, because we don't have high unions, low worker protections, we have a lot of jobs that just pay shit, and the native workers don't want to do them. And because they're right-wing capitalists, they don't want to... one of the arguments I keep making lately is like, look around Europe, who has low immigration? Ignore Poland because it's a separate story. It's a new economy. But of similarly compared economies, it's all the Scandinavian nations. And you then go, well, why is it the Scandinavian nations? They always say, they're tougher on migrants. They're harder on migrants. They're not really. Like, a migrant has access to like free healthcare, free education. What they are, they're a country that has very high unions. They have a lot of worker protections, and you can't have a job that pays dog shit. Like, it doesn't really, there are probably some, but like in general, their lowest paid job will pay enough to have a good life. So native workers will go and do it, because native workers don't want to go break their back in the field working in some shit condition when they've been to school and they expect that they're meant to make something of themselves. So they don't have a lot of low skill, low wage immigration, and they don't need a lot of immigration. They do in the more high skill things, they do that, and people have less of a problem with that. But over in Britain, we have low worker protections, we have very low unionisation. All the laws since Thatcher basically like made unions very ineffective. You can't have like solidarity strikes with different sectors. So there's like, it just breaks apart the idea of like a collective working class. And so we have these jobs that have no protections, and therefore natives don't want to do them, and they need to be done because it's stuff like, social care, but work in the NHS, construction work, all these things that are vital to the economy. No one wants to do them. And unless, this is like the bread and butter of it, unless the politicians want to say, look, we have to get rid of pensions, we have to get rid of the NHS, we have to get rid of welfare to get these people into taking these jobs, which is not going to be a popular position to lead with, they're not going to be able to end immigration. So like, we have this absolute fuckery of a situation where each of them will say they're going to lower immigration, but they will never be able to do it. And because all the politicians, even the left, even Labour, are like reaffirming that this is a viable position, that we should, they're giving credence to this idea that we can or should lower immigration, the people are going to keep asking for it because they're being told by their leaders that this is the problem. It's being confirmed by everyone. This is the problem. And so they're going to keep looking for, well, who's going to do it? We need the strong guy who's going to do it. And then we're going to end up voting for more like Rupert Lowe. And then it's going to get more extreme. And it's just like, that's how I see where the right is going in England. Because, the left over here it's just, we're struggling. Yeah.
Like,
did that answer the question? I went on such a tangent.
No, you did.
I feel like I've skirted around the question a little bit.
That's a podcast, brother. That's a podcast.
Yeah.
Completely.
Pay you by the word.
Yeah, you did explain pretty well, the direction that the UK and one could argue some other Western European countries and the United States especially are going towards, and it's relatively obvious because that's the only thing pretty much at their disposal when it comes to the pitch on why everything sucks.
Yeah.
Everything sucks because the herder, they came and they stole your job. Okay, elect me. Okay, you just elected me. Thank you. I'm doing my best to get them out. You don't, of course, don't get them out. In order for me to get them out, I gotta gut this and this and this public good. Please support me throughout this election. We're gonna gut these 5 public goods. I'm doing an idiotic oversimplification, but our listeners get me. So that next time you elect me, we will be able to actually fully dedicate ourselves to the immigration problem. I mean, wasn't that the whole spiel and the whole fucking coping mechanism ever since Brexit? And that's why the UK in particular is a very interesting example, because it's arguably the most extreme place where one should expect the average Briton, average British person, to have at this point seen just how much they're getting railed up the ass, and not in a nice way, if you know what I mean. Like, you had fucking Brexit, things have not improved. And then you've had, what is it, fucking 700 different prime ministers going in and out, promising a particular thing, which will improve things, and making things even worse and even worse and even worse. Why am I saying that Britain is a more quote-unquote special case? Because of the magnitude of Brexit, right? With an event as massive for the UK as Brexit, not yielding any direct results, I, as a relatively, I believe, rational human being, even though I'm in this fucking mask, would think that most people would be like, okay, that their pitch was absolute bullshit. We got conned. Let's not look at the far right for answers anymore. And yet, no! Let's dig deeper into our own fucking graves. Let's fucking go. As long as this fucking, immigrant corpse is piling on top of my grave, I'm fucking happy, As long as the neighbor's cow dies, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Or as long as the neighbor gets deported and I get his cow. Even though he doesn't have a cow and I don't have a cow. There's no fucking cows. There's a guy over there on the hill with all the fucking cows. Why are you looking at the... Sorry. Yeah, JT.
Beautiful as usual analogy you got, Nick.
So
it's just
true.
Zero-sum thinking is so prevalent in neoliberalism. It's my favorite political comic is it's an Australian one with Rupert Murdoch, I think, and he's sitting at a table with a pile of cookies in front of him. There's one dude in like a suit who's got one cookie on his plate, and there's a dude in like clear working class garb who's got like crumbs on his plate. It's like, careful, mate, that bloke wants your cookie. It's like that's it works for immigrants. It works for like the perceived class divide. That zero-sum thinking, as long as that exists, it's always going to be othering this. You can't have the life you want because of X. Yeah. And it's very, very convenient for the working or the ruling class every single time at the expense of the working class.
But that's extra meta. And sorry for interrupting you. No. That's extra meta because somebody painted that picture, right? In order to depict just how stupid this sort of lack of class consciousness is. In the UK, even though, except for Jeremy Corbyn, I have respect for Jeremy Corbyn, Labour in general, it's complicated if we can call them at least modern Labour, left-wing, etc., etc. But there used to be someone that can paint the picture where Rupert Murdoch takes the cookie and tells you, yo, this is fucked up. Now, in the UK and in other countries as well, but in UK on steroids, there's nobody painting the picture. There's nobody making that point. Yeah. The guys that were supposed to be making that point are like, no, I mean, Rupert Murdoch says he deserves 10 million cookies. We say he deserves 9.5 million cookies. What the fucking hell, right? So, yeah.
But that was the whole game plan was like, so if you really think about about it. It pissed me off about some of the left in the UK that get very disheartened about Corbyn not winning in that time. Is that they sort of? It was almost like you've just picked up a badminton. I play a lot of badminton, so it's
hell yeah,
like
a man's game.
Yeah, proper man's game. That just smashing cocks. That's what.
Yeah.
But yeah, so me and the bros when we play about it, like you can't expect you pick up a racket and you're going to win the first game. Obviously, it's like it takes a while. Like Jeremy Corbyn should be, the analysis of Jeremy Corbyn was that a grassroots movement able to infiltrate a massive party to get leadership. They got a load of votes. It didn't work the first one because it takes time for people to really see what the truth is and for us to sell the message. And then what happened is they fucking rug pulled him and then put in Keir Starmer. And like that is like, that was the core thing, was that Keir Starmer is one of them lot. My cat, why are you in it? Yeah, she's cute.
It's lovely.
She always comes in as a bit of a message. She's always like sneaking in. Anyway, so
what are you talking about?
Corbyn, he loses, and then they get rid of him, and then the guy comes in. He is now affirming all of the right wing thinking. So there's no, like, in the public imagination, no counter argument. There's no second, like, image being portrayed. It's basically the right is correct. What they're saying is correct, but we don't need to be as extreme as they are. But you're affirming their, like, analysis of society, that the problem is growth. The problem is we need more wealth and we need to create more wealth. And the problem is our system is mismanaged and we need to, like, you know, cut some funding here. And that immigrants are providing a strain on our system. So our left are like in the mainstream, like obviously amongst people who are like more politically switched on, we can see the analysis. But what just your average Joe is being told is that both the far right, the right and the left are all in agreement. These are the problems. So it's like a lack of political leadership on that level. And I think when you actually poll British people on most attitudes, and it's the same for most people anyway, but like, and even if you look at actually how British people vote, we vote more left, but because of the way the system and the result, the types of candidates we're being given, all the outcomes come out right. And it's like, I think there is an undertone, like I know that it is very hard in Britain to try and like really push for a leftist movement, but I do think there is an undertone that if you can communicate correctly to these people and explain stuff in a way, and that's what, like, I guess our jobs is to do, it is possible. Like when we were talking about the petty bourgeois in Britain, like one of the things I think I try and do, but then like Gary tries to do, and what I want to start doing more is getting into like the right wing bro like podcast place, like sort of Modern Wisdom, Chris Williamson, them sort of guys. I don't know if you know them.
Modern Wisdom.
Yeah.
Our show's called fucking Deprogram, so I can't exactly point and laugh at a motherfucker.
Yeah. So like Chris, I don't know why I'm so surprised, because he's been on Joe Rogan. He's in that sphere, but he like watches my videos and is into it, and he likes them and stuff, and he wants to get me on the show and that. And I want to try and get into that space of young lads who are like trying to build something in their life, and they are being told that it needs to be hustle culture, you need to start building a business. Because if you can explain to them clearly that the reason that it is, even I want you to go and make a business, I want you to be entrepreneurial, but the reason you can't is because of wealth inequality. It's making your business harder to run. Rent is too high, like energy costs are too high, and you're competing against these chains and these monopolists that destroy the market that you can't even compete against. And I think if you can speak to them and try and win over that petty bourgeois, I think that's a big flipping point. If you can get young lads to realise the game is fucked, but it's not a case to be a nihilist.
Petit bourgeois aspiring. Yeah, petit bourgeois aspiring.
Yeah, because honestly, that's how I see myself. It was like I was one of those guys, wanted to build something, wanted to make money, and then I did it. I achieved the thing. I got to the end of where every podcast bro was telling me to, and I'm in a flat that I pay mortgage on, and it's not that big. It's okay, and I'm still like thinking, how am I going to have kids? Like, you know, and I earn money that I would have dreamed of having as a kid, and more than my parents earn, but it still doesn't equate to a lot of material, you know, like it's not luxury. I have a nice life, but it's not like, it's not what I was told it would be. And so I've come out the other end, and that's where I try and hope to like talk back to people, be like, look, even if you succeed, you're not going to get that much. We have to work together to get more for everyone. And I think like if we can get that message across to that class of people, those young lads, I do think you can, I don't know, I think you can get them on board, and I think they'd be very powerful. I don't know about how they did it back in like the sort of 30s, but I think it was that. If you can get young lads on board, I do think there is something there.
Yeah, especially. Sorry, JT, did you want to?
No, it's just the old quote. Give me one generation of youth, and I'll change the world. That's what it comes down to. And I respect your willingness to go on those podcasts and fight the good fight, because I ain't cut out for that. But Godspeed.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. That's the whole point. A person needs to find their particular niche social background and their particular niche experiences that can make them relatable for a particular group of people, and then target them specifically in order to push them into the so-called leftist funnel. I have a whole fucking video on this, fucking 40 minutes, in order to move them further down the so-called, quote-unquote, it sounds scary, but it's not, radicalization pipeline. And nobody can be an ace of all trades, right? Like, you cannot talk to every single demographic out there. And if you're genuinely dedicated to trying, and I don't know, even if you make one class conscious person per fucking month, or per video, per show, per article, etc., you've done more than, like, honestly, like 90%
because that's what it's like. It's a butterfly effect, isn't it? It takes a village, and it's like, if one person's job, I am not a researcher, but my videos could not exist without all the people who do proper research and like who do all the academic work. And although those guys might not be good, if you chucked them in like a podcast or a debate, they might not be good. They've provided for us the like arsenal and the artillery of information that we as communicators can then take to the people. So it's like that's how you work as a community, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's the whole point. That's to an extent our job. And then I even had a question on whether you think this, achieves anything, like you're in your gut, or are we just making content for the sake of content in this fucking grind machine? Which I asked this, we asked this, most guests that have established themselves with a platform online and that do exactly what you do. In many different niches, on different levels, between super beginner to fucking nerdy ass fucking shit, everywhere in between, and people have different hot takes. So what's yours, especially as I hope this comes across as respectful as possible, as a new commissar propagandist of the one of the newer ones on the platform. I want you I want you to fill me with optimism, is what I'm trying to say. So do you think it's just content for the sake of content, some fucking relatively interesting Discovery Channel style videos, or does it contribute to anything?
I think it's definitely getting there. Like, it's definitely contribute. It's just we're expecting so much in such a short period of time, and because it's not happened today, but you can see it in the real world. Like, you can see through Zora Mondani's success, you can see from AOC's growing. She's been about, but like their tour, the oligarchy tour, it is getting bigger. And we're seeing it here, where the phrase wealth tax is now a conversation, whereas it wasn't even a thought. And even Labour are like hinting at it right now that they might think about it. And this is when I chat to Gary has a very similar attitude. It's like, it is going to be a long uphill battle, but everything that we're doing is like creating the foundation. So we're like, in a sense, the guys we're like planting the seeds, and it takes very long for it to grow. But like, for instance, if like I'm going to assume probably a lot of us don't necessarily agree with Destiny in his political views.
What the fuck?
Yeah. But if you think about it, if Destiny didn't go in and start debating all those right-wing bros just on anti-Trump stuff, if he didn't do that, I would probably not be making the content I'm making, because he started to like he broke that view that Trump was good, or it was some sort of needed force or something. And so
sometimes somebody by mistake does a good thing.
But it's that's part of what you're saying, that pipeline. Mm-hmm. And then what does he do? So he's done this, and this is a guy I wouldn't even say I fully agree with on quite a lot of stuff, but he planted the seed in for me making content, and then I've started making content that's on this, and I've gone in a different way, and I get messages from people like, yeah, man, I was going to vote for reform. There was a guy who messaged me the other day. He was like, I was close with the Tommy Robinson crew. So this is someone who was like deep in the like very far right. And he was like, yeah, you've completely switched me. And what will that guy do? I don't know. That guy might go on and make content, and he's going to be I was like next to Tommy Robinson, and this is where I'm at now. He might do that. And so it's like this continuous growth of a movement that takes us making these videos, because if we're getting hundreds of thousands of views, it only takes a few percentage of them to go and do something. And some of them might not be YouTubers, some of them might be academics, and they might put out some incredible work that, like, I don't know, talks about how to tax rich people properly,
or
all
organizers
this sort of stuff.
Start up their own political movement, or join one, or change one up from the inside, etc., etc. That's the whole point, to push them to actually organize.
And I do not think what we're doing is I'm not allowing myself to think what we're doing is pointless, because it's like you need to believe that it can get somewhere and something can happen from it. And I really just think from a logical level as well, less than emotional, but like logical, you are just growing. If more people are doing it, you're spreading it out. And as you say, different types of people that come from different backgrounds that get switched onto sort of leftist politics from different ways, they're able to speak to people from different backgrounds. Like half the reason, and it seems it's sad in a sense, but half the reason that people like my stuff is because I was a right-wing white bro, and I'm not going to be like, you're not going to listen to a black feminist talk about the exact same shit I'm going to talk about, but she can probably talk to a crowd of people that will listen to her, whereas I can talk about it. And it took me a while, and things had to happen, and I had to go through the like the process, as I say, of like trying to do the hustle culture shit in order for me to then have the story that it doesn't work, sort of thing. And the same with Gary. Gary had to go and be like a trader in a bank before he realized that like it's not, it doesn't work. So it's like these experiences have to happen, and then we're building up the foundations of it. And I think I can only be optimistic, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's one thing that I wanted to ask you, and this is kind of a good point to bring it up. You tell the story in one of your videos about the resort with the towels holding the chairs, reserving those chairs, and you get to this quote where it's like, it's frustrating that every generation has to fight this same fight, like to come to these same conclusions that we've come to before. Yeah. And that's something that I've seen being on YouTube as long as I have been. I'm seeing channels crop up now that are posting videos that were very similar to mine when my understanding was very minimal. When I was just starting, when I had just found out that Bernie wasn't the devil, for example. And then I'm like, okay, maybe they've got some good ideas here. I'm going to put up a video about like Bernie's not that bad. I'm seeing those same things like, and part of me was like, maybe because I've gone further down the pipeline and I'm seeing my peers making videos similar to where I am now, it's like, the left in the United States is growing, or in Britain or wherever is growing. And then I see these videos, I'm like, oh no, we're retreading this same ground again. Like I thought we had settled this, guys.
But they're reaching a different group of people.
Yes.
So it's like you might have reached him that made that video, that then he's now reaching a younger or different demographic. So I think it's not we're retreading, we're widening the reach.
That's what we can hope, that we're not it's not like we're just treading water. There is a first wave, and then there's a second wave, and slowly we're going to have a continual
and I think like our thing, especially in like America and Britain, is that our younger generation do fundamentally have completely different life experience and material conditions than the older generation. And there is some degree in which like when them lot, like when they get to the end, like things will fundamentally be different. Like they say that whole shit about as you get older you get more right wing. I don't really buy it so much. I think that was that was like because of the time, because they were pushed like towards Reagan and all that sort of stuff. So I don't personally buy that kind of attitude, and I think our generation we do think so differently, and we've been exposed to so much stuff that it would be very hard to like, we might become the equivalent right wing on certain positions in culture or some shit. But in terms of economic beliefs, which is I guess where most of us will sort of say is the most important, it's going to be hard to make us think that like, actually capitalism's sick.
Like absolutely. The refrain these days is, man, I'm really tired of living through once in a lifetime crashes or whatever. It just keeps happening. And
like we grew up on the era of like, I don't know, Fight Club. Like if you think that was a very key film that sort of talked and critiqued capitalism, it critiqued consumerist culture. So we have already in our culture a sort of like slight dissatisfaction with the way things are, whereas the generations before that they didn't. They grew up on like films that were all just America's amazing, war's amazing, the American dream. We grew up on that tail end. I do think it's like a case of time, and I think also if we can give candidates and we can give young people an opportunity, I think there is that massive opportunity where there's untapped votes where if they can get out and get voting, which we don't know if that can be done, but if that can be done, by giving people the right candidates and something to like back and believe, I think there is that we can shift the tables on that as well.
It's a win-win. Listen, like obviously now people listening to the show, there's like 700 different, subcategories of socialists, Dems, fucking Leninists, fucking everything you think about. Some people for my beautiful mustache, of course. But it's an unironic win-win in every single circumstance. What am I saying? New candidates are brought up, new, more reformist approaches get pushed through, and they succeed. Fucking great. They don't succeed. That leads to higher radicalization amongst people who start understanding that, the electoral path is impossible and therefore start developing more revolutionary mentality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What JT said with the waves, absolutely. We should, and as what Jimmy said, create a image of what type of person we are trying to communicate to, create the type of writing, the type of video, the type of audio show, the type of any sort of quote-unquote propaganda piece that can address their particular material conditions and their particular issues, and teaching them that, the right is offering absolutely nothing except digging our own grave deeper and deeper and deeper, and allow them to come to their conclusions at their pace. Very often you will create progressive thinking people through the wildest of circumstances. Sometimes through the creation of another video on free running. Sometimes if they just click on an over the top academic piece that very very rigorously analyzes, I don't fucking know, why coffee machines are shit now. What's going to click for particular people is not something that we should be losing our mind about. We should try and focus on the type of message we're trying to send and what type of person we are trying to send it to. And then, history and class conflict and so on will dictate the direction we end up going in. But nobody should dissuade exceptionally well-intentioned, and number one, and number two, more importantly, people who dedicate their time, effort, or their fucking life energy into trying and pushing this idea forward, be it through rhetoric, be it through organization, be it through, boots on the ground, whatever the fuck, because we do not know what works long term. We have historic examples, blah blah blah. I know everything you're gonna say before you even say it. Not you guys, just my imaginary guy in the wall screaming at me now. Yes, we have historic examples, but those do not define our future and everything that can potentially work for us, because we live in a pretty different world than the one that has come before us. As different as it is similar, as people like to say. But this is on the positive. This is on the, the three of us sitting here and circle jerking each other real nice. Let's talk about the big bad enemy, especially when it comes to propaganda. Obviously, in the good old US of A, we have some of the world's greatest gifts that keep on giving. The Tim Pools, the Ben Shapiros, the Jordan Petersons. I used to listen to Jordan Peterson as well. I was like, this guy fucking absolutely makes fucking sense. But then, and then he was like, fucking killed him. Yeah. The Candace Owens.
Yeah,
Candace Owens. How do I say that in plural? I don't fucking know.
It's weird.
Owenses. Owens, the Owens, the Clandenses. There you go, the Clandenses. And right now I'm alluding to your video on the British middle class grifter. Who would you define as the British big three? And if you could give us some background, maybe even contrasting how they operate compared to that of American right-wing grifters and so on and so on. Who should the kids look out for?
Yeah. Definitely. That's tough. So he's gonna hate me for saying this. I'm going on his podcast in a week because I called him a grifter.
For like a more debate style thing. Okay.
Yeah. Konstantin Kishin, top of the not top.
God, now I'm learning. I'm not even sure. Konstantin Kishin.
Yeah. He's a Ruski.
Oh, fuck this guy!
Yeah,
oh my god! No, fuck this shit, dude. As a Slav, this fucking guy makes me want to fucking gouge my fucking eyes out. Oh my lord!
He wrote a book called.
He's like every story. He's every annoying fucking. He's every annoying centrist fucking privileged Slav that I fucking know, packaged into one human being that fucking lives over there as well. Oh, sorry.
He made a book called An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West, and it was like he also
you go seething.
And he like done this whole thing of like, when I was a young Russian immigrant into the country, all of the Russians would stick together and we'd all like talk to each other in Russian, and my mum said, no, you can't do that, you have to speak English. And like, so he's like, I'm that honorable immigrant who chose to integrate, and it was all of the others that didn't integrate, and this was bullshit.
Can I kiss hand, please, sir? Thank you, sir, very much.
Yeah. And it's like, the idea that this is why like he can't see he's a grifter. Like, he can't see it, but he thinks he's a centrist when he opposes.
Think so.
He opposes climate. He believes climate. He doesn't believe it's not real. He just believes there's absolutely fucking nothing you can do about it. So he's like, he doesn't buy into net zero in any regards.
So let's make it worse.
The free market will solve it somehow. It's done such a good job at that. And then he's like, also, probably there should be no immigration, or we should turn it down, maybe just high skill immigration, but like effectively, like he's sort of even gone into the kind of nativist, almost ethno type nationalism without really going into it. But he went and said like, Rishi Sunak is not English. And so, the whole argument is obviously going to be the case that he's talking about ethnic Anglo-Saxon genetic, which is a weird thing to bring up in conversation, but like he's
especially as one that is not one. You are not. Like,
but then he was like, well, Rishi Sunak is like, you could call him British, you can't call him English. And I'm like, I get your pedantic argument, but I am like half Irish, and all my life I've been called English, because English as a category has become looser because we have quite a different relation to immigration than say like Japan does, where he's going to compare it to. Like, we're quite different in that sense. So like, probably on a technical level, but like his implication was like, you can only be true English if, and it's like, why are you talking about that? Like, even if you're on a logical level, there might be some truth that ethnic whatever, blah blah blah, you're not of the ethnic blood or whatever. Why are you specifically talking about that? Like, why is that the conversation you've chosen to have?
Red flag.
Why are you being weird? Yeah, exactly.
In a time where you are obviously on that side of anti-immigration, why have you chose to sort of go down this ethnic thing? And so he does a lot of this stuff, and it's like, he's like a knockoff Ben Shapiro, where he's not quite as, I would say Ben Shapiro, I don't know, maybe Ben Shapiro is like a bit, I don't know what it is. I would just say he's like a B-Tech, we would say B-Tech, like a low quality,
a great value, budget version,
He might be more of a Candace Owens, because he's doing the I'm a good one. Thing.
Yeah, a little bit. He hasn't gone anti-Jew, I don't think yet, but like, he's
just
toes in the water, I'm sure, but I don't know. But like, so he's like, I don't know what his reach is, but they get a lot of fucking views, and all this is the funny thing. They all think we live in an echo chamber, but their whole like to dislike ratio, it's always like 98%. Like all of the comments are like fantastic. He could say the most unhinged shit. He could say that global warming is impossible to fix. There'll be he's never had like a climate scientist on. He doesn't understand that like the way our he doesn't understand like the reason, like renewables are actually more profitable, but the way that we've made our energy supply in Britain is that we tag the price of renewables, they're tied to the price of gas, and gas is particularly expensive in Britain. So even if renewables are like a fraction of the price, they get sold at the same rate as gas. He doesn't understand any of the economics. He's never spoke to anyone who like could even explain this to him. He says rhetoric like, people are not going to accept a lower living standard to save the environment. And it's like, but no one's arguing for that. So he argues outside of the realm of reality. So it's a weird one. Konstantin Kish, he's definitely one of them. But then you have like Douglas Murray, I'd say he's got to be like the most successful. Like, he's sort of seen as this, he's brandished around as like this very intellectual person. He's in the newspapers. He's got the class background where he doesn't seem like, he seems really one of the Brits, he's like really part of that sophisticated, well-educated sort. He's not like a fringe radical activist. He's like one of them two. And like, he does a lot of the, he kind of normalizes the anti-Islam stuff very, very well.
Yeah, he's like the Jordan Peterson of
for sure.
One
and they chat together. Yeah. Who else would be like number? I would say Sargon of Akkad does. Nah, he's like sort of doing the grunt work. Yeah, OG, proper OG. Yeah. He's doing like the groundwork on like the very far right, like the ethno-nationalists. He's still, his bio says sensible centrist. But he is effectively an ethno-nationalist. Like, he is always on about the ethnic population are being replaced. He will never come out and say anything like specifically like black or brown people ever like they have worse genes. He won't say it, but he's so fucking close and he's such a bitch, like, he can't just say it. So yeah, they're probably like the three I would say. They're the ones that, but there are probably, in a regard, there's probably people who are more influential than Sargon of Akkad, but I just think he plays the groundwork on like the ultra far right, and he's like making, because I know like one of my right wing mates who I would say was more like where I was, which was more like a economic libertarian, just sort of anti-woke type person. He was that, and all of a sudden we were talking the other day, and he was like, "There's this podcast I've been listening to lately, and you're probably not going to agree with it too much. It's the Lotus Eaters." And I was like, "Bro, like that's the Sargon of Akkad's." And I was like, "Bro, what you're in that?" Because they're like ethno-nationalists, and he was like, "Yeah, I'd stop listening to it because they seemed a bit racist."
God, okay, at least you noticed.
Well spotted.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, to me, it was just scary, the fact that someone who was where I was, which is more like, economic right, anti-woke, a bit reactionary, is now just listening to people who are ethno-nationalists, which I was like, in the period of time I was on the right, I weren't listening to like the equivalent of, what would it be, Richard, Nick Fuentes. I wasn't like, that wasn't my world. Yeah. So like now it's kind of worrying that reached him, and I've definitely seen a lot of my more right-wing mates are now becoming more ethno-nationalists as opposed to like cultural. It's weird.
It's always socialism or barbarism. If you don't get out of the right-wing funnel, it eventually leads you there, because the left-wing funnel is like, you look at contradictions, you're like, what are the systematic causes? You learn about them, and then you move down the pipeline as you realize just how difficult it is to overcome said systematic causes, etc., etc., etc. With them is cope stacking on cope, what we talked about earlier, right? Like, it's this, we can't do the immigrants because we need to do the NHS. We can't do the NHS because, and then you end up with Jews or some shit, right? It piles up, and you eventually have to go
similar sort of
down.
pseudoscience sort of thinking, isn't it? Where they, like, I think with the flat earthers, there's that famous story that they went and funded some big research into trying to work out, and they worked it out, it wasn't flat, and they still somehow, they were like, the equipment's off, or someone's fucked with the equipment, or something like that. And it's like, because they've set the, I don't know why, like, because I don't know how they get so tied in on capitalism. Like, I try and work out, why was I so tied in? And I do think it was because I saw, in some sense, the left as being pussies. And I really think, as a young lad, that masculinity thing of like, you don't want to be a bitch, especially if you're a young lad and you want to try and meet a woman, you don't want to feel feminized, especially because their framing is that being feminized is like something that will dissuade women from you. I think that actually plays a part in it. I don't know. There's probably different reasons for different people, but like, I don't know how they get so tied in on capitalism. I think for me, it was that it was tied to being weak. That was probably it, and that's so emotional, isn't it? It's like,
it is, and it's a really strong pitch. It works on dudes all the time. It's because they managed to pretty much co-opt it. The whole, like, how the fuck did we allow the right wing to have the facts over feelings rhetoric? Facts? Yeah. What the fuck, motherfucker? You're just like, backwards. The ice is melting. No, it's not. Dude, here, look, it's... No, it's not. I feel like it's not. How do they have the fucking, I absolutely agree. But we are actively working on, obviously, dissuading this entire pitch by, putting masculinity and the definition of it on its head, and showing how 95% of these quote-unquote snake oil salesmen that are pitching how you're going to have a much greater life if only you pursue their $999 per month course on being a true brother and escaping the matrix by being even deeper in the matrix and just buying stuff and
just
owning
drop
stuff.
ship and
Yeah, it's brilliant, etc., etc. So as much as they are pushing people further and further down the right-wing funnel, one could argue they're also pushing them out because they have to get more and more and more and more ridiculous. And there you go. Your friend is a great example. Thankfully, he was like, "What? Was he fucking racism shit? What the fuck?" So then they start going back and they're like, "Was the previous, like the not so radical right-wing guy I was listening to, is he also saying some sus shit on race?" Which was, for example, his break. And it starts breaking them. This is a whole, to an extent, fucking marketing pseudoscience, but it's
that's
how
quite,
funnels work.
That's quite interesting to think about. Yeah, because I'll keep a close eye on where he goes with his journey. Because
you
that's
can have a whole video on like I studied my friend's political.
yeah, that's actually a sick idea. But yeah, and like I've noticed, even I've started to find people who are so hills in the ground about being like immigration's the problem that they will even say shit like, Jimmy, I completely agree with your like economic views. I think like your spot, you point out things, but I just can't get past the immigration stuff. Like they're even left this on economics, but they're just like anti-immigration. They will even say stuff, bro, if you could just stop immigration and do all the other stuff. I'm like, bro, it doesn't work like that. I would be lying to you and I can't do that. And it's like, yeah, that's a big thing where a lot of people on the right even start to agree on our economic views, which they just, now I feel like that's where I'm like really trying to build my arguments on immigration because and my understanding of it, because I think that that's the final thing. If I can just really make it clear to, it's never going to get to everyone. Some people are just racist because they're racist, but there are a lot of people that have been manipulated and convinced into it, even slightly reasonable people, lots of reasonable people that have been convinced of it just because no one has taught to them as an adult. They're all lying to them and they've not heard the other side. And I don't know what that percentage is, but I do think there's a reasonable chunk of people that can be brought back on a logical argument. So yeah, I think the immigration thing has to be the kind of battleground a little bit.
Yeah, in the UK especially, it's difficult to zoom out. They've all their life they've been zooming in on this particular issue that is defined to them as an issue, always with correct me if I'm wrong, but racial bias, either conscious or subconscious bigotry towards the quote unquote different, which is difficult to kind of root out, but absolutely possible to root out by simply pointing out the fact that, dude, it's just a diversion tactic they've been throwing at you. Stop looking at the diversion tactic, you're stupid. But obviously not by saying it the way I'm saying it now, etc., etc. And I think like JT, we like with to not take too much of Jimmy's time, I think your question at the end would be a really good like kind of sign off. Do you think?
Sure, yeah. So let's wrap it up. Hugo mentioned earlier that you and I have pretty similar backstories. I also had some pretty cringe right-wing adjacent opinions. Like I even made a couple of videos back then that are private now. That are like, what?
Do people still send him screenshots off of like, bro?
Like, I know. So those will never see the light of day again. But like you, kind of libertarian economically, anti-woke before woke was really a term.
Yeah, you were just classic racist.
Exactly. Yeah, I was an American
member of the Klan.
KKK clan. Yeah.
I hung up the hood. No. But
it's a bed sheet now.
It was a zip hood. It wasn't the.
It's like, why is there a hole in this sheet? I've got all sorts of explanations for that. But like you, I was.
Your daughter comes into the room. Dad, am I a wizard?
Jesus, sorry. You're a ghost, honey. You're a ghost.
Wizard,
yeah.
He's like, no, the grandma. Oh shit. Oh, sorry.
My poor sweet daughter. She will not join the clan because ain't no girls allowed.
Yet, come on, people are open.
Oh my god. Yeah, woke clan incoming. Woke clan.
Woke clan.
But like you, I was able to.
The cloth is going to be black and brown.
Jesus Christ. So I educated myself over time, and my journey to use the cringe terminology, right, towards the left started about 10-ish years ago. What year is it? 2025. Yeah, 10-ish years ago, a little longer than that. It sounds like yours was a bit more recent, and at this point in one of your videos, you say you consider yourself like a social democrat in favor of stuff like the Nordic model, Bernie's policy proposals, and stuff like that. And so my question is kind of, it's part question and part warning, because your trajectory is following mine like pretty much exactly, and I ended up a dirty communist. So, do you see yourself falling like further down this radicalization pipeline? Like, what is it that's holding you back from seeing communism as like, if not like the future, at least the next step? Like, where are you on that right now? Because it just out of personal curiosity.
That's a good question. I think and I'd be actually interested to like hear a sort of counter to this, because it's kind of what would hang me up on it. Is I think I sort of believe any way you consolidate power in any way, and maybe there's different ways of organising it, and this I guess is probably where you would sort of counter, but like any way you consolidate power, I do think there are people, and I guess some people on the left would say it's structures that make people behave a certain way, perhaps. But I do think there are some people who are sort of inherently a bit like selfish. But now I'm even saying it, I'm questioning myself. But anyway, okay. I would say there are people that are just a bit ruthless or selfish, and they will find, even in that scenario, even when you've got it, you have a consolidated body of power, they will just always find a way to break through. It's like the same argument you guys will make about social democracy. I sort of see it like, why would that also not happen under a communist system? Like, if you've consolidated power into a way, you just need someone to be a dick and just fucking break it at any point. And I sort of, it leads me to this sort of existential, I guess, way of thinking that I don't know if you can ever solve anything truly properly forever and eternally. I do sort of buy into this idea that things have to constantly be fought for and battled for, because, and I guess, I don't know, that's just how I've seen history. But it seems as though that's the case. And I guess I just don't have what I would consider, to me, it seems like a utopic view that you could finally solve it. Like, it feels that I don't know if that can ever happen. So to me, the idea of communism is like, I still think even once you've got this party, or you got a democracy that even upholds workers' rights, the working people is the key stakeholder in society or something, how that couldn't still come undone, and why would it not inevitably come undone? That's kind of like, I guess, where I get hung up on.
It's like, you, to an extent, like, beautiful point, but to an extent you answered it yourself. The so-called path towards communism, which is defined as the end goal, is a constant so-called battle of class contradiction from one system into another, where hopefully at some stage that is borderline unimaginable to 21st century people, we could reach a society in which those contradictions no longer exist, where the main contradiction obviously is hierarchy. But your point that is, I have 100%, and I think even the most like unhinged MLs and Maoists and so on would agree, is currently in capitalism, the biggest contradiction is, the worker getting fucked over, and through that, the inspiration of reactionary politics, which then harms, the intersectional whole, minorities, women, etc., etc. So, by addressing, it is our, how do I put it? It is not our destiny, it is our role as the current generation living in capitalism to address this very particular class question between the bourgeois and the proletarian, between the big capitalists and the workers. And when that question is addressed through the creation of call it whatever, a worker state, an anarchist dislocated communities everywhere, whatever type of approach it is, the thing that comes afterwards is not going to be perfect. It is going to have future contradictions, future classes that erupt and then engage in the same sort of long-term conflict until that contradiction is fixed, and we move into the next one and the next one and the next one, up until hopefully one day we reach the point. That is information taken from human history, pretty much. Why we went slave societies, feudalism, capitalism, before then, hunters-gatherers, to today. So TLDR, and you answered it yourself. You absolutely know this. Just maybe the information, like pathways that are missing, is that commies, and that define themselves as commies and so on, don't say that the next step is going to be the end of history and we got it all figured out, we're all holding hands, kumbaya. There's still going to be cunts, there's still going to be new contradictions that erupt, I don't know, well, fucking let's go full tinfoil hat on it. What if there's fully automated workers that develop consciousness, and now there's a dichotomy between organics and symbiotics? Unironically, but that creates a new class dynamic, and the synths are going to be like, what the fuck, man, this shit don't make no sense in like 150 years, and that contradiction will be hit as well. How we get there, there's 100 different theories, right? The more peaceful, the fucking better. We always love to say it. It just went as time passes by, you tend to not get discouraged. Quite to the contrary, you start being a bit more, let's say, pessimistic on just how many of the current tools we have at our disposal in a capitalist democracy or whatever you want to call it. That can allow us to maybe switch into a worker state. Not even switch into a worker state. Defeat the capitalist contradiction, right?
I
suppose, I think that's going to be... It's I'm very glad you explained it like that, because it's very interesting. And I think that's going to be, in a sense, like the marketing problem of... I guess anyone who would ever label themselves communist, is that in the mind of everyone else, they're going to think you mean the solution's here right now and it's possible, and they're like, bro, there's no way. So when you kind of see it as like a general philosophy of a thing you're moving toward or gravitating toward, that makes a bit more sense. Yeah. Sort of in the same way that like, I'm a Christian, so I feel like you gravitate your life toward like this belief in some kind of higher power and a morality or like a way of behaving or something like that. But you're never going to achieve it, but you move in that direction. So that's quite a good explanation of it.
But there you go. Somebody who's really, for example, hateful, like a very militant atheist or whatever, would arguably be one against Christianity, because somewhere they heard that unless you behave exactly 100% as Christ, you are not a real Christian, right? So that is a manipulation of the original, not of the original, of your interpretation of your relationship to Christ, etc., etc. The same way it is a manipulation of the ideal that Marxists and anarchists have, which is the revolutionary path from system to an eventual point in which that sort of conflict will no longer need to happen. But it is our purpose right now to make sure that our children live in a system that's a little bit better than the previous one, the same way we were elevated into capitalism for feudalism, etc., etc., etc. I'm just moving the goalpost to like it's yes, I agree, it is very difficult to market, but it is very difficult to market because of the image that was created on this particular issue and 1,000 other ones. We want to take your house and your spoon and your toothbrush especially and type shit, etc., etc. But that's what we're here to do, That's
the pragmatic. Yeah, that's what I always try and say. Like, I'm pushing toward this sort of direction. Like, I think I said it.
Of course.
When I did like a political compass in a video, and it put me as like a democratic socialist. And I said, but realistically and pragmatically, I'm like a social democrat, because I guess I see it that's the next potential thing we'll get, or like anywhere near it. So not that I wouldn't want to keep pushing in the direction of less capitalism in a sense. I just sort of think, look, I'm playing a board game and this looks the most likely we would get in this scenario. So that's all I can sort of expose my brain to. And then once we're at that point, I even said in the video, me and people who are far left of me would split at that point. And we'll see. I'm not a deep ideologue. Like I try and be very open to arguments in the moment or whatever. So we'll see. I appreciate you putting it across like that, because I haven't heard that kind of way of explaining. Position.
At least it could, and in the long term, like it's the funnel's the funnel. Like the type of stuff that the JT makes is very different to the type of stuff I make, and it's very different to the stuff you make. The end goal, is what I believe we can all agree to, is less reactionary fucking right-wing logic, more progressive thinking, and more critical, a far more critical perception of the current system we find ourselves in. And then how the general public perceives this and the direction they move in, that's the will of the people, as they say. So, thank you. Shaking hands on that. Fuck yeah, Jimmy. This was absolutely brilliant. Please tell our audience where they can find you, and spam me later with all the links to all your stuff that is going to be in the description.
Yeah, big up. That was really fun. Really enjoyed chatting with you. I appreciate it. On YouTube, I'm just Jimmy the Giant. On Twitter, I'm Jimmy the G. I think on Twitter, I'm Jim the... No, I think I'm Jim the Giant. I don't know. If you just type Jimmy the Giant on most platforms,
They're all
you'll
in the
find me.
description.
Instagram, TikTok, all that sort of stuff. I'm mainly on YouTube though. Yeah. Big up. Great to chat to you guys.
Likewise.
Keep up
Thank
your
you for
work.
coming on. You as
Likewise.
well. You as well. And Godspeed on your next podcast appearance with what's his name? May you put on put on the armor of God for that one.
Oh, I'm so excited. So excited.
I'll definitely watch you on
Trigonometry.
Trigonometry. Fucking hell, dude. God.
Let's wrap it up before we get you canceled. All right, well, that'll wrap us up for today. We want to thank our beautiful patrons, without whom we could not do this show. Otherwise, we would be shilling Dollar Shave Club, etc. on the Deprogram. And you have our solemn word, we will not do that. Jeez, I don't know if you guys can hear that thunder.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
The gods of Dollar Shave Club are like...
Yeah, they're pissed.
Predator missile!
We've also got the dogs here. They're not thrilled with the thunder.
Aww.
But anyway, thank you, patrons. That was a little teaser for you. If you want more dog pictures, join the Patreon. I post pictures of Bandit and Bagel in the Discord, which you get access to, even at the very lowest tier. We love our patrons. At higher tiers, you get bonus episodes, exclusive episodes, stuff a week early, even chatting rights with the gods of this podcast, me, Hugo, Hakeem, once a month. It's a blast. We love it. With all that being said, this has been the Deprogram. I'm JT.
I'm Ugopnik.
I'm Jimmy the Giant, and go subscribe to Trigonometry.
Oh, son of a bitch!